The phone is propped against something. The lighting is bad. She's not performing. That's the first thing you notice. Jen Hamilton is not performing. Her face is wet. She's mouthing words she didn't write, to a voice that isn't hers, over a song she probably didn't choose because it was pretty. She chose it because it said the thing she couldn't say out loud. And floating over her face, in plain white text, are the words she let do the talking for her. Crying for weeks about a man I was loyal to for 15 years, who wanted everyone but me. No explanation, no caption, no disclaimer, just a woman, a phone camera, and 15 years of marriage reduced to a single sentence she had to borrow from a stranger because her own words weren't enough. Or maybe because her own words would have been too much. This is July 2026. This is a TikTok that will be seen by millions of people who thought they already knew who Jen Hamilton was. And in 20 seconds of silence, no voiceover, no interview, just lip sync, she will burn down the carefully constructed version of herself that took 15 years to build. But before you understand what that moment cost her, you have to understand what she built, what she stood for, what millions of people believed she was. Not because she lied to them, but because she only showed them part of the truth. And you have to understand what was happening in the part she kept off camera. If Jen Hamilton ever made you feel seen in your most vulnerable moments, leave a like right now as a tribute to the woman who held everyone else together while her own life was falling apart. Because what you are about to hear, very few people know. Jen Hamilton didn't start as an influencer. She started as a nurse. Not the kind of nurse who monitors vitals and moves on to the next room. A labor and delivery nurse, the person standing at the threshold of the most terrifying, most overwhelming, most physically and emotionally exposed moment of another human being's life. The moment when something is about to happen that cannot be undone. When a woman is at her most vulnerable, and she needs someone to look her in the eye and say, "I am here. I see you. You are not alone." That was Jen Hamilton's job, and by every account, she was extraordinary at it. That professional identity, the woman trained to hold space for human fragility, became the foundation of everything she built online. Because when Jen started sharing her life on social media, she didn't pivot away from that version of herself. She extended it. The same presence she brought to delivery rooms, she brought to her camera. The same willingness to sit with discomfort, to name the hard things, to refuse to look away from what was real, that became her brand. And her audience felt it. Millions of followers. A New York Times best-selling book. A platform built entirely on the promise that what you were seeing was real. Not curated. Not performed. Real. That word, real, was doing a lot of work. Because while Jen Hamilton was building one of the most trusted voices in the wellness and lifestyle space, while she was writing about vulnerability and connection and what it means to show up honestly for the people you love, her own marriage was moving in a direction that didn't match any of it. The followers saw the family. They saw Brian. They saw Ellis and Luke. They saw the version of her life that fit the brand. What they didn't see was what was accumulating in the space between the posts. For years, the math seemed to work. Jen Hamilton posted about authenticity, and people believed her, because the authenticity was real. She wrote about vulnerability, and people trusted her, because the vulnerability was real. She talked about showing up for the people you love, about what genuine connection looks like, about the courage it takes to be honest, even when honesty is uncomfortable. And her audience grew. Because people can feel the difference between someone performing sincerity and someone actually living it. The problem wasn't that Jen was lying to her followers. The problem was that she was protecting something. And protection, held long enough, starts to look a lot like silence. And silence, held long enough, starts to cost something. What was happening inside that marriage, inside the frame that her followers never saw, is something Jen Hamilton has never detailed publicly. And this script will not claim to know what she knows. But what we do know is this. At some point before the summer of 2026, there was a separation. Brief, not announced, absorbed back into the life she was publicly living, the way cracks in a foundation get plastered over before anyone can see them from the outside. The world didn't notice. Or if it did, it didn't ask. And Jen went back, because that's what 15 years looks like from the inside. That's what loyalty looks like when it's embedded in your identity, when it's tangled up with 2 children and a public life and a brand built on the idea that you show up for the people you love. She went back, and the cracks stayed. Here is what 15 years means in real terms. 15 years means you have built your entire adult life around one person. 15 years means your children have only ever known one version of their family. 15 years means your professional identity, the books, the followers, the brand, is photographed against the backdrop of that marriage. 15 years means you have defended this person, protected this person, prioritized this person in ways large and small and invisible, so many times that the defending and protecting and prioritizing stopped feeling like choices and started feeling like breathing. 15 years means that when something is wrong, your first instinct is not to leave. Your first instinct is to fix it, to try harder, to be more patient, more present, more understanding. Because you have been loyal for 15 years, and loyalty doesn't know how to become anything else without a rupture so complete it cannot be ignored. Jen Hamilton was loyal, by her own account, by the words she chose to lip-sync in front of a camera in July 2026. She was loyal for all 15 of those years, and the person she was loyal to, apparently, was not loyal back. That is not a conclusion this script reaches. That is a conclusion Jen Hamilton reached. Those are her words, borrowed from someone else's song because her own weren't ready yet. And they are the most important words in this entire story. In June 2026, something broke through the surface. Jen posted a video, emotional, raw, the kind of content her audience had come to expect from her. Except this time, something underneath it was different. This wasn't the managed vulnerability of someone sharing a difficult season. This was the unmanaged kind. The kind that gets posted at a moment when the filters stop working and what's real just comes out. She deleted it. Then came the joint statement. Jen and Brian Hamilton, together, announcing their separation in the language that joint statements always use. Mutual respect, shared commitment to their children, gratitude for the years they had built together. The language of 2 adults who have agreed, at least publicly, to protect what remains. Ellis, Luke, the children who are not characters in this story, but whose presence shapes every decision their mother is making in real time. The statement was careful, measured. It said everything it needed to say, and nothing it didn't have to. And then July arrived. No statement, no caption, no explanation. Just Jen Hamilton's face, wet with tears, mouthing words over a sound she didn't record, in a video she didn't script, carrying a text that said everything the joint statement had carefully avoided saying. Crying for weeks about a man I was loyal to for 15 years who wanted everyone but me. This is the moment the Jen Hamilton story becomes something different from what her followers thought they were following. Because this is not the managed vulnerability she built her platform on. This is not the carefully considered honesty of a woman who knows her audience and knows how to speak to them. This is a woman who, for one unguarded moment, stopped protecting the narrative, stopped protecting Brian, stopped protecting the public image of their family, stopped protecting the version of her life that had been legible and followable and safe, and instead let a single sentence do what 15 years of loyalty had prevented her from doing. She told the truth, not with her voice, not with her words, but with her face, her tears, and someone else's lyrics that she chose with enough precision that no one who watched it could mistake what she meant. The video stayed up. The joint statement had said mutual respect. The TikTok said something else entirely. And that gap between the language of the statement and the reality of that video is where the actual story of Jen Hamilton lives. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from being the person who holds things together. Jen Hamilton spent years being that person, professionally, in delivery rooms, at bedsides, in the most physically and emotionally exposed moments of other people's lives, personally, inside a marriage that, by her own account, demanded more loyalty than it returned, publicly, as a voice that millions of people trusted to show them what real looked like, even when the real in her own life was becoming something she couldn't show. That is an enormous amount of weight to carry. And most of it was carried invisibly, the way the hardest weight always is. The brand she built was never dishonest. She was genuinely the woman she presented herself to be, someone who believed in vulnerability, in connection, in the courage it takes to be seen. The nursing career was real. The book was real. The relationship she built with her audience was real. But there was a version of her life happening behind all of it that the authenticity never quite reached. A marriage that had fractured once and been repaired in silence. A loyalty that kept being offered to someone who, apparently, did not offer it back. A private life that grew increasingly impossible to reconcile with the public one. And then, one July night, with a phone camera and borrowed words, the two versions of Jen Hamilton collapsed into each other. The woman who had built her entire identity on the idea of showing up honestly for other people finally showed up honestly for herself. Not through a prepared statement, not through a carefully worded post, through 20 seconds of silence and a sentence she didn't write, but absolutely chose. Here is what the Regra do. ACO demands we notice. The woman who made a career of holding other people's hands in their most vulnerable moments posted her own most vulnerable moment to the internet, and then watched millions of people she had never met hold it for her. The thing she gave to others for 15 years, presence, witness, the simple act of being seen, came back to her from strangers on a screen. That is not a redemption arc. That is not a conclusion. That is just what happened. What comes next for Jen Hamilton is genuinely unknown. She has 2 children who need a version of their mother that can exist after this. She has a platform built on authenticity that is now, perhaps for the first time, completely aligned with the life she is actually living. She has a career that was always hers, the nursing, the writing, the voice, independent of the marriage that is ending. But here is the question that the TikTok leaves behind, the one that the joint statement didn't answer and the deleted video couldn't contain. What does a woman do with herself after 15 years of being loyal to someone who wasn't loyal back? Not angry, not bitter, just what does she do with the version of herself that was built around that loyalty? What does she build next, and for whom? And on what foundation? Jen Hamilton spent 15 years being the person who walked into a room and said, "I am here. I see you. You are not alone." She is in that room now. The question is whether she can say it to herself. Nobody knows the answer yet. Maybe she doesn't either. Drop a comment below. Did you know any of this before today? Because most people didn't. If this story stayed with you, like and subscribe, because we cover the real stories behind the public versions every single week, and the next one is already waiting for you on your screen.